the screens that I'm.
You pulled.
Make ice, so.
Oh, it's warm in here.
Kitty?
Yeah. Why don't we wrap this meeting up?
It was warm over there too, and I was like, you guys have been like this all day? But in here, I was like, woo.
This one. I'm like, I'm actually not freezing right now. So that's a first. Yeah. I'm like,
Let me get that. That is hot, isn't it?
what should I do?
That is true. Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Test, test.
It is now 5 o'clock, February 20th, 2018, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Ms. Gomez?
Present.
Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Negretti?
Here.
Mayor Garcia?
Here. This is the time and place for the general public to address the city council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda per our government code section 54954.3. State law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. I don't see anyone in the audience that would like to address the council. Therefore, can we have declaration of closed session items by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We have several items, and as usual, several of these items are related. Item A, on behalf of the City Council, is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, and the facts and circumstances pertaining to that are set forth on the agenda pursuant to Government Code 54956.9E3. Items B and C on behalf of the City Council are related to items F, G, H, and I on behalf of the Airport Authority. That is all existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. And again, the case names and case numbers are fully set forth on the agenda. Item D on behalf of the City Council is related to item J on behalf of the Airport Authority. Also existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. And again, the case name and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. And lastly, item E is a workers' compensation claim pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.95, and the parties to that litigation are, that workers' compensation claim is set forth on the agenda. To the extent there is reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the 6 o'clock regular session.
Thank you. We will not recess to closed session, and our regular session convenes at 6 p.m.
Want time to read it.
I wanted her to say that. That's hilarious. They filed first.
Just an Mobius strip.
Sorry for that delay, but we will be starting in just a second. It is now 6:05, February 20th, 2018, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville, and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Cox? Ms. Gomez?
Present.
Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Negretti?
Here.
Mayor Garcia?
Here. May we have closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had several items on closed session this evening, several of which are related. Item A was anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, and the facts and circumstances related to that are set forth on the agenda. Items B and C on behalf of the City Council are related to items F, G, H, and I on behalf of the Airport Authority. This is pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and the case names and case numbers are all set forth on the agenda. Item D on behalf of the City Council is related to item J on behalf of the Airport Authority. Again, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and again, the case names and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. Lastly, we had a workers' compensation claim pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.95. The case name is Fear versus the City of Victorville, and there is reportable action with respect to that item. The council, on a vote of 4-1, with Councilmember Blanca voting no, agreed to settle a workers' compensation claim number 16-126711 with Amanda Fear, I guess it is, F-E-E-R, and the amount of the settlement will be a total amount of $44,042.68. That is all of the reportable action.
Thank you. At this time, we will have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be delivered by Pastor Tim Cool from High Desert Church. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Police Chief John Schuler, so please stand.
All right, let's pray. God, we thank you for our town, for our people, for our resources. We pray that you would bless us, that you would lead us, that you would guide, that you would provide insight, humility, and wisdom. And it's in the name of your Son that we pray. And everyone said, amen.
This evening, we do not have any proclamations, but we do have a presentation of 2017 Energy Leader Partnership Gold Level Award presented by Amy Olson, Southern California Edison.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us out here. I'm Amy Olson with Southern California Edison. I'm an account manager, and I represent the city of Victorville. I also want to introduce with me today.
I'm Jennifer Cusack. I've been your government relations manager, and I brought with me today a new person we've hired to work out of the Victorville office here in off Asperia Road in Victorville, Juan Lopez. And we want to congratulate you on the award. And Juan, although the transition isn't happening immediately, he will be reaching out to you and scheduling meetings individually, and we look forward to having somebody full-time in the Victorville area covering all the cities. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Mayor, council members, and staff, looking forward to working with you. As I transition myself, I'll be full-time here in the area up in the high desert, and like Jennifer said, out of the Victorville office. Thank you.
So. Back to the fun stuff, though. We're here today to celebrate some of the accomplishments for the city of Victorville. You are part of the High Desert Regional Partnership with some fellow cities, Apple Valley, Hesperia, Adelanto, and Barstow. In this partnership is a partnership with Edison that promotes energy efficiency and energy awareness out in the community. And as you move up different energy savings levels and tick off a few different items, outreach, benchmarking, that type of thing, you actually get enhanced incentives. So there's a value level that gives you an extra 3 cents. There's the silver level, which you were at for 5 cents. And then now you're at the gold level. So you get an additional 9 cents per kilowatt hour when you do energy efficiency projects. So it makes those paybacks a lot better so that you can do more projects, save more energy, and ultimately you pay Edison less money. And today, the gold tier was achieved through completing a greenhouse gas inventory. You participated in outreach events with a Title 24 workshop in August. The Mobile Energy Unit came to the Victorville Fall Festival. Some gentlemen here, our facilities and water department have worked very hard to put together projects in the most energy efficient way. They've saved over 790,000 kilowatt hours, and that equates to about $118,000 of money the city doesn't pay Edison because that's deferred energy. It's energy you're not using. So we wanted to congratulate you today and to also present you with this ceremonial plaque celebrating the achievement of your gold tier status in the High Desert Regional Partnership. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to come up? Or? Oh, there's got to be more people than this. Come on.
I'll come down.
Come on down.
Would you like all of us to come down?
Yeah, come on down.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say we really appreciate Southern California Edison's partnership, and we look forward to improving that partnership in the future.
I would add to that, Madam Mayor, very pleased last week at the VVWRA meeting when they brought us a check for $96,000. I think VVWRA was different in that we were selling back to Edison.
No, that was...
You didn't bring a check with you tonight, I noticed.
No, this is sort of a conglomerate through the partnership, but I'll get working with Eddie and Arnold, and and we'll get some more projects, and then when we get some incentive dollars, and I'll bring out the big check.
No, but I really appreciate Edison's approach to conservation. It's real easy in your business to say, geez, we're not getting as much, we need to bill more.
Yeah.
You haven't done that.
No, it's a different business model, but we're really happy that with all the participation, and we really appreciate, all that you guys do and that you support to get these going. There you go. Oh, I love you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Edison. We really do appreciate it. Okay, moving on. I will have our city clerk present the agenda to council and any revisions to the agenda.
The City Council of the City of Victorville welcomes a public participation in tonight's meeting. Persons who wish to address the council on specific item or any item that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments made during the public hearings, written communications, or public comment sections of the agenda are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less, as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the city council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of the city council meeting by willfully interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with the removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9, Penal Code Section 403. Thank you for your cooperation. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council. Following are 2 revisions that have been submitted for tonight's agenda. Revision number 1 is to item B1, additional information, memo regarding mid-year budget adjustment to include an increase to city council travel and meeting budget, and revision to item B2, staff's request for continuance of item. And that's all, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions on these revisions right now? Yeah, revisions? Not yet? Okay. Appeal hearings. Item A1. Appeal of Planning Commission approval of case PLN 17-00017, a site plan to allow for an approximately 500,000 square foot addition to an existing distribution warehouse with a mitigated negative declaration within the Southern California Logistics Airport, SCLA, at 17182 Nevada Avenue. Mayor, at this time, I'll have the clerk read the recommendation.
That the City Council conduct the public hearing for public comment and continue the item to the March 20th, 2018 City Council meeting.
Are there any questions of from council members of staff at this time?
I have.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I suppose, if I'm looking ahead, this is to request us to continue the item.
That is correct.
I read this only because when you get involved with standards, air quality standards, soil standards, construction, and mitigating those standards, they point out about the school that's fairly close. And I noted then any uses of may, could, probably, not applicable. And I wondered why all of these statements would be made. Then I began to read that the recommendation to comply with certain standards in South Coast Air Quality Management District, Sacramento District, San Francisco, or that at Palo Alto, which have nothing to do with the air quality requirements here, which is governed by the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District. They do have guidelines. Maybe that it would be smart, or I suppose in the case of South Coast, to use their guidelines, but that doesn't count unless it's been litigated or it's in fact the state or federal. And I didn't know why there wasn't just a straight reliance on MDA-QMD. That was the first thing. Look at they want to follow source mitigation standards as suggested by SCAQMD, South Coast. Again, it was a suggestion, it's not a requirement. And then they want to use a case from Chino that isn't one of the requirements. And they make some statements that are just patently not true, although I don't want to argue about that at this time. What does stick out in my mind is that there's a reference to people and schools and maybe some mitigation measures to protect the health standards should be considered. Once those things are brought to the attention of our staff and or the council, because we have this, then I don't think we need to look at what South Coast recommends that we use as adopted by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Simply doesn't apply. On the other hand, if there's an allegation that school children or young people are going to be harmed, paying money doesn't mitigate that. In the past, we have had a kind of unwritten policy that we are not the applicant. We're not challenging the process. And so whatever the applicant and those that challenge work out is fine with us, as long as it meets the standard of the Planning Commission. But if there's an allegation that the health welfare of our citizens, especially children, are at risk, it seems like to me that there ought to be a requirement that the city complete the health risk assessment, because that is binding and that doesn't make a difference what the other agencies write about. I don't think we can look at this and say, no, it's not our project, it's up to them to work it out, and they will figure out how much money to pay, and once they pay the money, everything's okay, because the payment of cash is not a mitigation measure. I think that council needs to look at, I think, first of all, they need to read this, but when it's brought to your attention that there are emissions that are harmful, and we simply take the position, oh, that's okay, as long as one party pays the other, that's enough mitigation. I don't think that should be acceptable. I don't think it should be acceptable to council. And however, it's not our project. We're not the one to challenge it. Be the applicant to challenge or write a rebuttal. But I think once it's brought to our attention, this council has an obligation to be involved in the process to ensure that a health risk assessment is made, approved by this city, and that health is not factor that's going to continue to be harmful. I will say it again. We've looked the other way. We've always taken the position we're not the applicant or the one filing the appeal. Pay the cash, you're okay. Cash is not a mitigation measure. It makes people filing the lawsuit happy, but it doesn't solve any of these problems. And so I hope that staff will look at that, and if necessary, council needs to look at for a change of policy. Thank you. That's all I have.
I'm sorry, the mayor had asked for questions, but you made a comment, so I'm going to go ahead, and if I'm allowed to, I don't have questions. I also had comments, or I'll wait till her direction.
Right now, it's questions of staff.
I don't have questions. I just have comments.
I'll wait for the next one then.
Standard kind of complaints that are filed anytime attorney files an appeal, everything in, including the kitchen sink. Everybody's life is in danger because of this project? Or is there something specific in this one that's a serious issue? Maybe when we get to the discussing it, we would cover it.
Yeah, through the CEQA process, we go through an initial study process where we go through state mandated aspects of the impacts that the project could have on the environment. The letter that was referenced tonight regarding potential impacts was received after the Planning Commission took action on it. There's nothing on the record that this was brought up before. Unfortunately, in California, the way CEQA was set up, we can do our best in the environmental assessment that we have, but by no means is any environmental assessment bulletproof. So someone can always pick at it and find issues with that. But we do when issues are brought up, they need to be responded to, especially in the public forum that now that these attorneys have brought forward some issues that they take with this project. So yes, when this project comes forward, those will be responded to accordingly.
Anyone else has any other questions of staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I open the public hearing. I do not have any cards.
It would be good to have a motion, but I believe Councilmember Gomez has some comments that should be included in the public hearing comment section.
Correct. Do you have some comments?
Yes. I know this item was not introduced by staff for the public's consumption or review, so bear with me with the information that's found on a voluminous agenda we received before our council meetings. So were any of the following bodies, and I'm talking about planning commissioners, city council, or staff, aware that according to the United States EPA, current project sites that are on appeal hearing, they're on the sites of the ground, they are on a site which is contaminated with jet fuel, TCE is the short for trichloroethylene, pesticides, and nitrates. The soil is contaminated with total petroleum hydrocarbons, dioxins, construction debris, medical wastes, pesticides, semi-volatile, volatile organic compounds, and various inorganic compounds. An accidental ingestion of or a direct contact with any of the contaminants may pose a health risk. As an elected legislative body, we are responsible for decisions that directly and indirectly affect not only those that are hired for the labor, but also for the project's duty, which includes a lot of these sensitive receptors. And the example that was placed in this item is children in Adelanto School District and the AME Academic Excelsior Charter. So how could a parent, a grandparent, or a stakeholder respond to a project site that could have gotten away with, in an initial study, mitigated negative declaration that didn't draft an environment impact report or supported its approval of a project site that did not do a health risk assessment? I would be infuriated, and I'm very upset for becoming aware that such projects are slipping away at the commissioner's hands. And this one has been the occurrence. We see that the appellant was adamant enough to bring this to make it an appeal. And I heard your response saying that after the commissioners had put their decision, then you got that notice, and I wasn't aware of that. So why am I infuriated, you may ask? Mr. Hagman, the expert hydroecologist, submitted comments that are blatantly and seemingly ignored. One of the many issues that is worthy of noting in tonight's comments are the council. Here is one. We weren't looking into a draft to create an environmental impact report. We didn't look into creating a healthy risk assessment when it was evidence that not only do we have a prison on the south side of this project site, but also a school northerly that is about 400 feet. One comment came from Mr. Hagenman stating that they have reviewed the proposed project expansion of the Rubbermaid site, calculating the excess cancer risk for the maximally exposed individual school children, MEISC, those who attend the Adelanto School District and AME Academy Excelsior Public Charter Schools, using the applicable health risk assessment methodologies prescribed by OEHHA. Yet, the initial study mitigating negative declaration that was submitted by city personnel stated otherwise, that the project does not include any of the project types listed in the AQMD guidelines that would affect these receptors, judging it as less than significant, a health risk impact. However, if you took the time to read the experts' comments, you would have noted that a preliminary, simple health risk assessment that would have been done would have showed that the exposure duration and the cancer risk of students exposed to at the school, which is children ages 5 to 14, would have shown that it's greater than what MD, AQMD threshold of 10 in 1 millions. they found approximately 34 and 1 millions. It is my official opinion that I state the following. Let's be more careful as to what passes through our hands before we prematurely disregard it as unimportant. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if there's no more comments, I move to continue the item to the March 20th council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
We move on to public hearings. Item B1. A public hearing of the City Council, the Library Board of Trustees, and the Victorville Water District Board of Directors to hear arguments for and against the mid-year amendment to the 2017-2018 fiscal year budget. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
That the City Council and Board of Directors approve the changes reflected in the agenda item and its attachments by adopting Resolution Number 18-008, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville, amending Resolution Number 17-031 as amended, the budget resolution for the City of Victorville for fiscal year 2017-2018, relating to an appropriation of funds, adopting the amended table of organization and fixing the rates of compensation. Number 2, adopting Resolution Number LBT-18-001, a resolution of the Library Board of Trustees amending Resolution Number LBT-17-001 as amended, the budget resolution for the City of Victorville Library for fiscal year 2017 and 2018, relating to an appropriation of funds, and number 3, adopting Resolution Number VWD 18-002, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Victorville Water District amending Resolution Number VWD 17-007 as amended, the budget resolution for the Victorville Water District for fiscal year 2017-2018 relating to an appropriation of funds.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council members of staff at this time? Mr. Negretti?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a lot here on this item, but certainly if we go forward with this, sometimes things don't materialize the way that we had thought. So if you're looking at the budget that we're looking at amending, if certain things change or need to be revised later, is that something we can do, or how does that work?
Yes, Councilmember Negretti. These changes are as a result of an analysis of the first 6 months of activity that have transpired between July 1st and December 31st. By no means are we expecting to be able to predict every penny for the balance of the year. If there comes a time where there's a requirement to amend the budget further on smaller items, yes, you'll see that in future council actions. At this time, though, this is based on 6 months review, is the most collaborative or comprehensive. And I mean collaborative because we did have a chance to meet with all of the departments and get their input and take into consideration their qualitative analysis as well. But this is probably the most comprehensive review you'll get of the entire budget throughout the year at the mid-year point. Hope that answers your question.
I agree. There's a lot of detail and information and some pretty precise estimating. Yeah. And budgets are important, and it's important to revise them and to get a better fix on where we are. Where do you think the mishits might be here? Where do you think we've done some estimates that could be subject to some change?
The first estimate you mean subject to change in the subsequent 6 months?
Yeah, in this next 6 months.
I think
and
the hardest
big changes. I'm not
big. Okay, the hardest target to predict is salary costs, in that we have an idea of what positions we have staffed, and we know what those are estimated to cost us, but what we don't know is if people are going to retire, leave, be promoted, and the timing that it takes to actually fill vacant positions as those positions become available, and we remarket them and re-advertise them. And so sometimes the amount of time in between the time that a position is vacated and the time we fill the position, that's usually an unknown, and it usually amount to a certain level of salary savings by year end. That's usually probably the largest component of the cost that at this point we would see how the next 6 months do, and then make a recommendation potentially at year end if it appears that it's going to go over, but in most cases it doesn't. Usually we have salary savings because we budget at the high amount, and then if people leave, positions become vacant, then we realize the savings.
Anything on the revenue side?
And on the revenue side, we've had a chance to kind of take a look at all the revenues based on the first 6 months. We are noting about a 3.5% overall increase in property tax, which is being recognized in a budget amendment, and about a 1.4% increase in sales tax. Those two items together represent just shy of $800,000, and that's being recognized as part of the amendment. Litigation costs are being recognized now where they were not part of the original budget that was adopted in June. So there were enough changes on the revenue side going up and enough changes on the expenditure side going down to where we were able to absorb the increase in the litigation costs. Other than that, a lot of the changes are really minute, just really projects that may not happen. Projects that came in significantly lower than what we originally budgeted. So you'll have vehicle purchases, for example. We had budgeted a certain dollar amount for each one of those vehicle purchases. Now that we've gone through the process and purchased the vehicles, there were savings. And so we're recognizing those savings and adding that money back to fund balance per se. So we've had a chance to really go through each line item. We choose a scalpel when we do this review, and we were able to kind of get into the details a bit. And like I said, this is probably the most comprehensive review of your existing budget that you'll experience through the year.
Anyone else? Okay, then I open the public hearing at this time, and I do not have any cards. So I close the public hearing. Any comments from council members?
Yes. So there are many expenditures increasings that are taking place within 3 different resolutions to be passed tonight. I have several questions in regards to them. Would staff clarify what personnel savings is in the different departments and what they mean? I know you touched up a little bit, but my reading of it was more cutting of departments, staff cutting because of we have expenditures for litigation, blah, 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 and that's my own way of seeing this interpretation. So you can clarify that further. And next is how the decrease of expenditures in a budgeted department such as animal control and development translate into a savings, and how unanticipated revenues and increasing expenditures for the different funds that we will be approving tonight translate into a layman's term of how the city is fiscally healthy, and not, as I interpreted the numbers to mean, where programs are being decreased in budgets to assist in paying for special elections and other city accounts. Please be sure to include community services and the purchasing division for clarity as to how we may or may not be doing financially.
Quite a bit of a question. Can you start with the first part again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so today we had this discussion, and I kind of alluded to my interpretations of looking at a lot of savings where personnel staff are being cut, and I saw that as a void to not having staff and be more like on furlough days. But you were saying that's not the case. I just misinterpreted, so I wanted that to be clarified because I'm still under that same notion.
Okay, so in that particular instance, it's as I described for Councilmember Kennedy's question, to describe how we incur savings from salaries. It's usually those positions where we experience retirements or people decide to leave us and go work somewhere else throughout the year, or they're dismissed for whatever reason. The time that it takes to fill that position usually results, depending on how long that is going to result in a certain amount of cost savings, salary savings. And so by no means are we reducing any staffing. There are no layoffs, but after 6 months of it, I think I've been here 7 months now, and I've experienced more retirements than I've ever had in this 6-month period. We've had quite a few people retire in the last 6 months, namely our city clerk and some other folks. And so as they are leaving, it takes a bit of time to recruit and fill those positions. The net result usually ends up being a cost savings to the city. So I hope I answered that question. What was the...
That was pretty much, it was looking at each department, because I know you went through each department, and I saw a lot of
That's correct.
cost savings and decrease of revenue or increase of expenditure, and so I was worried about that language meaning something else.
Correct. No, this is really just truing up the first 6 months to the actuals that we actually incurred the first 6 months, and then making a prediction on that, the impact of those changes on the balance of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Have a motion?
Should formally close the public hearing.
I had closed the public hearing, and I was on council members'
sorry.
comments.
Move that all resolutions, the 3 resolutions that contained in the public hearing, be approved, further waiving any readings required on the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Koch, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item B2, a public hearing of the City Council to hear arguments for and against the establishment of the Green Tree Golf Course annual budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 is set forth in resolution number 18-009 entitled, "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Victorville establishing and adopting the annual Green Tree Golf Course budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 and superseding resolution number 16-024 and subsequent amendments." Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council continue resolution number 18-009 establishing the Green Tree Golf Course annual budget for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Thank you. Are there
Question.
any questions of council members of staff?
If there's further discussion on this item, then I would request that council members Cox and Kennedy recuse themselves. If there's just a motion to continue the item and they don't participate in that, then I'm fine with it. That's sort of where you're at. Well, actually, you shouldn't make the motion. One of the other members should make the motion.
I'll make the motion that we continue the item.
Second.
No, I would recommend that you and Mr. Cox refrain from participating.
Second?
I have questions of staff, and I also have commentary.
I have a question that's not golf course budget.
Okay, as long as it's not...
Park system budget, community needs assessment, demographics, park community center, that's not golf course.
That's not part of the golf course. If you have a question just about that, that would be fine. Anything about the golf course, you should
It's a
recuse
public
yourself.
hearing. I'm not sure where the public hearing begins and stops. I understand you have ruled, the better part of Valor, just in case, was that Mr. Kennedy and I refrained from having a discussion on the golf course budget. And I heard somebody say there's a continuation, but I don't know what the continuation is, and I don't want to know if it's on the golf course. But is that continuation also for the park systems assessment,
Yes, staff's recommendation is...
needs assessment, et cetera?
Staff's recommendation at this point is to continue the entire item to the next meeting.
Thank you.
So I believe there's been a motion to continue and a second to continue.
Yeah.
There is.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mayor Garcia.
And it'd be appropriate now to ask for any discussion amongst the
Is there
council
any
members.
discussion?
Yes, I have questions and also comments in regards to
Discussion?
item B2. So my question first is, Has the golf course ever shut its doors since its inception of 1962? Why did it close and why did it open back up? And this afternoon, I wasn't warned that this item would be continued. This is news to me. What triggered this continuance?
So to answer the first question as to whether or not it shut its doors, the history of the golf course is either dating back to the late 60s or early 70s, so certainly predates me. But as I recall, some of the history being told to me was that it had started as a private golf course operation and did in fact shut down as a private operation, and because of that and because of views by the city council dating back to those times, the city council chose to actually buy and control and operate the golf course because they saw it as a recreational amenity to benefit the residents of the city of Victorville. So it's been for many, many years, probably early 70s, from when the city has actually owned and operated that golf course under its ownership. I'm not aware at all if it has closed its doors. I can remember back to at least the early 90s, so my personal recollection is almost 25 years. It's been operational and open over that period of time. As to the request for a continuance, actually the request for a continuance largely stems from the conversation you and I had this morning as a part of our agenda briefing, and yet a lot of questions that we believe, especially as it relates to getting more information, demographic, we'd like to be able to try to get that for you before making a decision. Also, there was comments raised by you in that same meeting about possibly considering holding this as a part of a larger workshop discussion. So respecting those comments, that was the nature of the request for the continuance.
So I'll continue with my comments. I happen to know that our 2-decade council member Terry Caldwell plays in the golf course along with our 2-term former city council member Ryan McCachran, our former 3-decade city manager and now 2-term mayor pro tem Jim Cox, along with our current city council member Jim Kennedy. This is definitely a playground that is benefiting our senior population, as the city staff reports mentioned. If I may ask Mr. Cox without yielding the floor, if there was insider knowledge, trader knowledge, that the golf course was to open, why many of the people who sat on the council either directly or indirectly benefited from purchasing a home or selling it during the time that the golf course closed and reopened, it would shed some more light as to why the issues of a golf course that is being subsidized from 3 city funds is up today for discussion. We would have many more workshops to dispel rumors and answer 3 questions that I posed to myself today. I'm not a career politician. I'm here for the people. The questions that I asked myself today is what is good for the community, what is not good for the community, and who does it benefit? If we are to keep the monies and use $1.1 million a year, which is currently being spent yearly on the Green Tree Golf Course, why not use instead the monies to enhance our 19 parks for the community? That would be $50,000 per park each year, which would benefit a community rather than 100 residential homes who happen to be, for example, $50,000 worth more because of a subsidized Green Tree Golf Course. I randomly went out today, just before this council meeting, to 8 random people in the city, which included residents and taxpayers, who imparted their wisdom. The question I posed to them was, what do you think about spending $1.1 million on the Green Tree Golf Course? One woman suggested that monies go to enhance our community parks. Another stated that the golfing green fees were already paying for the maintenance fees and that there was no need to subsidize. And in fact, the golf course is seen as a park system, that there should be no green fees because parks are free and there is no admission to parks. Another stated that there are too many golf courses, naming the following: Apple Valley, Ashton, Hesperia, Green Tree, and Spring Valley Lake. Another individual who happened to be an avid golfer reminded me of Apple Valley's contentious debates about golf courses and its closure were filled with a room full of people that wanted to continue to golf, killing the motion to ever bring back the option of closing the Apple Valley Golf Course. Yet another individual stated that Hesperia, too, was losing about $500,000 in revenue. And I quote, "And of course, anyone can cook the books while depicting a different story." The narrative then began to repeat themselves when another responded to my question by stating that as soon as Del Webb in Ashton sells to its last lots in the community, the community will have the first right of refusal to decide in a non-money maker, speaking about the golf course, that if it were up to the community, they would be faced with either keeping the golf course that makes them more money or a $50 property tax bill at the end of the day, for example. The question again is, do we want to continue subsidizing and keeping the Green Tree Golf Course, or use the money to fix other parks to use it for roads, and how much will that money go for 1 year's period? Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor, and I made a mistake. I think the motion is just to continue it to a date to be determined, and there's a second.
There is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
So what was the motion, if you could remind me?
The motion is just to continue it to some date in the future. There's not a date specified.
So undetermined date?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm sorry, would you go ahead?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I agree with moving it to an undetermined date.
You do? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Motion carries with Mr. Cox and Mr. Kennedy abstaining.
They did not abstain. They're absent.
Oh, they're absent.
Did someone go get them? That item was continued. Item was continued.
All of it?
All of it.
Thank you. All right. Okay, thank you.
Consent calendar. The consent calendar items C1 through C6 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be pulled for discussion.
Question?
Yes.
I don't think it needs to be pulled for discussion, but I just have one question in regard to item number 1, where this Hillcrest apartment is going to be resolved, deed of reconveyance, money is going to be paid To whom and where does the money go?
Mr. Cox, the money will be paid to the city in its role as the housing successor agency, which means it will be deposited into the housing fund and have to be used for future housing activities.
Thank you.
Of the consent calendar?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'd like to give commentary on this, pulling that item or just maybe staff review. C1.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Item C1. I was going to pull the item, but if I can have a little bit more feedback on what that item is rather than pulling it, that's what I was wanting to apprise the audience for. I had a lot of questions on this particular one.
Yeah, she wants more explanation. Go ahead.
So if you would let the audience know a
Overview?
little bit more, because we went through this
She
one
wants more
heavily.
explanation.
So this item very simply involves and is follow-up to a December item that was brought before the council, wherein the former redevelopment agency loaned funds to an apartment complex project called Hillcrest Apartments. The owner of the project is AmCal. They're an affordable housing developer. And the item in December involved the county's housing authority purchasing that property from AmCal and discussed the payoff of the former RDA's loan, which now sits as an asset of the city in its housing asset successor role. This follow-up item here for consideration tonight is asking the city to approve the execution and filing and recording of a standard substitution of trustee and deed of reconveyance upon the city's receipt of the $689 or so thousand in loan repayment that should be coming later in the month. And so typically we would bring a substitution such as this to the council for approval, get your approval, and then when the money is received, we would file that. And so we are asking for that follow-up item to be approved at this time.
Okay, so I heard that the apartment was to be used to house individuals with no home. These may be rumors, and I know the county is going to have possession of it. Does the city know anything about this?
This, I think you may be confusing another project that the County Housing Authority is working on. This is an affordable housing project, but it is not the same project that the county is considering to house the homeless.
Thank you. No further questions.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to written communications. Item D1, amendment number 2 to the agreement with NBS for a solid waste rate study. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation, please.
That the City Council approve Amendment Number 2 to the Consultant Professional Services Provider Agreement with MBS to increase compensation by $22,730 for a total amount not to exceed $46,330 and extend the term through June 30th, 2018.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council members of staff?
Yeah, Keith, just a question. We're doing a solid waste study and a sewer study. Are these linked? Are we doing them together?
We're doing them at the same time. In fact, we've got a workshop scheduled for next Tuesday to deal with both services, basically, but they are two separate rate studies.
They're very different services.
Right. One being performed by NBS is for sewer rates and charges to basically generate enough revenue to satisfy the sewer collection system. This is dealing with revising the scope of work so that it can be more inclusive to help fulfill the trash rates being recommended next week.
We're using the same consultant on both studies, right?
That is correct.
Anyone else?
I move item D1, the City Council to approve amendment number 2 to the consultant/professional services provider agreement with MBS to increase compensation by $22,730 for a total amount not to exceed $46,000 and extend the term through June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Yeah, you could ask if there's any other further discussion. This motion on the
Is there
table.
any further discussion? There's none?
Motion by Ms. Gomez, seconded by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item D2, illegal dumping update. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
This item is informational, and any additional action or direction is at the direction of, or discretion of the City Council.
Are there any questions of council members of staff?
Well, I had one. I saw all the different efforts that we have in place. One of my questions is, what's the penalty for anyone who does it and gets caught? I hope it is severe.
It's a misdemeanor, and it could be a felony depending on the, it's a misdemeanor, I should say, and it could be a felony depending on the gravity of the vandalism. So, for example, if a property owner is subjected to vandalism exceeding a particular amount, I believe it's $500, I believe, or $1,000, easily it can be. Concrete, just dumping concrete itself is just, a task of its own. It can easily be a felony, but definitely it's a misdemeanor.
Anyone else? No? Thank you.
No problem.
I do have one card. Jean Urick.
Madam Mayor, City Council people. I've been here obviously a couple of months ago to talk to you about this same subject. I reviewed the information packet that they had. I was really impressed on how much the city has gone forth, added the 2 dumpsters to the recycling centers and doubled up the crews. I have noticed a big difference in my area. I was astounded a little bit about how big it really is throughout the entire area. Everything I saw was good recommendations. They're good advertising in the recreational paper pages and also the newspapers. However, I would like to add just a couple of more things for your consideration. The no dumping signs that they're planning on putting up, we'd like if we could add the We Tip sign to that, the We Tip number, and then maybe also directing the people to the recycling centers for their dumping. It may be a little bit bigger sign, but it might be a little bit more informative to the public. Also, there might be an idea also to the big dumping times that we have, or collection times, if we could have maybe a movable sign throughout the city to inform the city residents about different activities regarding when and where they can dump items. It's also very hard to find the recycling centers. I would like to see at least be addressed the issue of putting a larger sign, maybe even electronic sign, allowing the people that go over on Palmdale over there by the fairgrounds to bigger signs. Hey, this is free area here. You can bring your stuff to these areas. We need to advertise as much as possible. And also maybe encourage property owners and or realtors to give some types of flyers out to people moving out and moving in about where to dispose of unwanted items. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You would think if people knew about this, there never would be any illegal dumping.
But we have a website. We do advertising.
How is it people don't know?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, actually the comments from, I'll go say Mr. Jean, I can't pronounce your last name. and I believe we've been in communication with you regularly, so certainly appreciate your comments. It is a very monumental issue that we're trying to get our arms around, and certainly would invite you to participate next week in the rate study, because one of the things that we'll be looking at as we're recommending rates for solid waste, trash, I think so many of us are used to seeing trash trucks, whether it's the recycling truck or the regular garbage truck, as that's what we're paying for. But the issues that we're paying for through those rates and the proposed rates are much greater than just the hauling services being provided. It's paying for the recycling center, which is the MRF. We've got these other satellite locations where you can drop off. But speaking to the question of why don't people know, the outreach is a very big part of it, and Mr. Jean made some comments that ironically seem to be identical to comments we were in discussions we were having internally just last week, which is how do we make our communication better? We've been doing a good job to this point, but is there better ways to do it? Because I think so many people have different ways of receiving messages in communications. I'll be the first to admit, if it's the little pamphlet inside the bill, I don't read it, and I'm guilty of that. And I think that's probably a pretty common thread. But I'll tell you one thing, and I shared this with my staff, an observation is when it comes to, say, community watch or neighborhood watch signs that are out on the street, I do notice those. I do notice the signs that we have up there that are sponsor a street. So I think there's different ways to do it, whether it could be signage or maybe even not just community signage, but signage that actually points to and advertises those days a little bit better. We could probably get some more response. So that's something we'll be focusing on even more, but I wanted to make sure that the council is aware. We'll make the nexus next week. Those are things that get funded out of those rates. So the more we have a sustainable rate structure for the services, certainly the better we can do to try to eradicate the illegal dumping issue.
Seems like a couple things that would work well. It seems like our staff ought to go to every U-Haul rental outlet in the area and give them a list and have them pass those on to anybody who rents a vehicle. I mean, I would think that'd be helpful with that. But every time I roll into Home Depot, I see probably half a dozen guys on the corner there with trash hauling and home repair. I mean, guys out looking for business. Gosh, why not stop and give them a list of all the places they can dump free? They may not be the people breaking the law, but still it wouldn't hurt to advise.
Greater community, yeah, that's definitely a large focus going forward.
Madam Mayor, I have a couple of quick comments. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Jean for coming here a couple months ago, I think, and bringing up this issue. But there is a map in the documents here in the backup materials for this item that shows problematic areas that are dump sites, potential dump sites, illegal dump sites that are all over the city. And I bring that up because along with the backup materials, there's also a lot of success stories. I think sometimes we really don't hear about too many success stories. We hear about the problems a lot of times. But I would like to commend staff. This is an overwhelming problem. Our city has grown so fast that, as you can see, it's outstripped its services. But without folks and the citizens taking the time and the energy to come here and tell us whatever the problem is, that's okay. That's what we're here for, is to serve the community. And we can't get everything at once, obviously, but there is priority lists. There are things that we can do, but if we may be focusing on another problem side of the area on the other side of town. It's persistent. It's a persistent problem, but no, you came to the right place, and I hope that the other citizens, they use those We Tip signs. The worst part about living in a community is when somebody's doing something illegal, whatever it is, and you know about it and you don't do anything about it. Or you complain about it and then you never actually engage the resources we have here at the city of Victorville, whether that be with police. People show up, they don't, the police show up, nobody wants to say what's going on. Well, it sort of defeats the purpose of calling the police. You complain about the way things look, there's a graffiti number if you see graffiti. There's resources here to attack some of our problems, and if anything, that would be a big improvement, I think, is for the whole community as a whole to be aware of what services are out there, but not just to be aware of it, use it, come here. So anyway, good job to the city and the staff, and thank you again for coming, Mr. Jean.
Anyone else?
Yes. I appreciate bringing to my awareness the different programs along with the addresses that the city is engaged for the public good. The only 3 programs as a council member, and I've lived here for 30 years, that I was aware of was the Free Dumping Day, the Adopt a Street, and cleanup days, only because I either personally volunteered or I had a resident requesting services, which I had to ask our interim city manager to guide me. Unfortunately, the residents don't necessarily have direct access as council members do with city administration. However, I would like to have copies of all of these programs, hopefully in my desk, if someone can please assist me with that, so I can become the same conduit to just give to people. I'm one other source that I will hand out to other individuals to know what's going on in the city. Sometimes we tend to forget that it's common knowledge for us, the things that we hear and we know about, because we live and we breathe City Hall. We are City Council, and we have city agendas. However, right before our very noses, we have many people who are foreign to a lot of these programs. So I like for each of us to acknowledge that. Not all of us have the time or understand or need that essential program to know about. It only comes to our awareness when we actually need it or someone has asked us for that type of information. Thank you.
Well, I believe that we do have that that booklet that goes out to all residents, and it actually does give all the telephone numbers to all the different departments, and it gives you all the information of everything that the city provides, including parks, recreation for youth, seniors, everything. And it includes recycling areas, and all that information is in that booklet. And every single citizen in the city receives one. So that information does go out. But I do understand not everyone reads everything they receive. They think it's junk mail, and they probably just toss it. But anyhow, thank you so much for bringing that information to us. Anyone else? Not. This was only for discussion. I don't think we need a motion on this one.
That's correct. I believe it's just informational.
We move on to item D3. Joint solutions for organizations distributing meals. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Any action is at the discretion of the City Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council members of staff regarding this item?
Madam Mayor, I have some quick comments. At our last meeting, I asked for this to be put on the agenda, so I appreciate the council support. As I mentioned earlier, there are many great organizations out there distributing meals, and from what I've been informed, it's obviously not just focused on homeless folks. There's children and other folks that may be poverty-stricken. But anyway, regardless, one of the biggest concerns that I have with different individuals, organizations, churches that are attempting to help address these issues is sometimes people get to the point where they put themselves in jeopardy. And what I mean by that specifically is we had a Mojave River problem with the homeless, and it's a dangerous place to be in the Mojave Riverbed. And so when we had a number of homeless folks in there, people were going with their families or kids down there to give people food. And what I had always hoped for is that we as a city and could promote sort of an organizational approach to these issues as opposed to actual individual citizens going down in harm's way, putting themselves in harm's way, especially children. So when I look at a lot of the great organizations that are doing some of this work, some of them are well-resourced and some aren't so much. So what I was really hoping to do is hear from some of our folks out there today and just sort of what they're doing. And if the council desires maybe some sort of way ahead that we can come up with today before the items go over. That's what I'd like to say.
Anyone else? If not, I do have a card. Gabriel Calvin.
Good evening, Victorville City Council. I'm Gabriel Kelvin. I'm representing the High Desert Food Collaborative and speaking for our director, Bill Edwards. For those of you that have not heard of us, the High Desert Food Collaborative is a collection of 32 food nonprofits that distribute to the High Desert. Our names include Victor Valley Rescue Mission, High Desert Second Chance, Victor Valley College, St. John's Lord's Table, and many others. And I'm the statistician and council member for the High Desert Food Collaborative, and I can say with confidence that we have distributed in excess of 173,000 distributions of food together in the year of 2017 alone. I represent the statistical side of this entity, and I am aware of the struggles and demographics of which we have in the High Desert as far as struggling with food insecurity. And we are in the process, and I will say making great strides through establishing the first food bank in the High Desert. Food banks are agencies that distribute food to local food pantries, which are able to distribute food to those in need in a safe environment, as Councilmember Negrete pointed out. And currently, at the moment, there is no food bank in the High Desert able to distribute to food pantries in the High Desert, which means that any food pantry that wants to succeed and have a food supply must either buy it wholesale or go down the hill to San Bernardino and have the manpower, resources, and time to do that. Any effort to feed those in need in a safe and organized fashion will be heavily crippled without the existence of a food bank. But I am happy to say that at High Desert Second Chance in Hesperia, we are making tremendous strides towards that. And I would say we have the first startings of the first food bank in the High Desert, distributing to 32 agencies, distributing food to the homeless in turn. We have recently purchased a 20 by 20 walk-in refrigeration unit, which has been serving to increase our food resources, of which have included Community Action Partnership, San Bernardino County, Feeding America, Riverside, San Bernardino County, St. Mary's, St. Joseph's, Kaiser Permanente, and Supervisor Lovingood have all been regular attendees to our meetings. And I would like to invite the Victorville City Council that if there's anything we can do to partner alongside you and receive the city's support in distributing food to those in need in the High Desert, in Victorville especially, then I am more than happy to come alongside all of you and you alongside all of us in our ongoing effort to end homelessness as far as homelessness and hunger can be ended in the High Desert. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have another one, Alejandra Diaz.
Good evening. I'm Alejandra Diaz, and I'm the regional coordinator for Catholic Charities in the High Desert. Catholic Charities has provided services to the High Desert region for over 30 years. In 1999, Catholic Charities opened a regional office in Apple Valley, servicing the Victorville residents and surrounding communities throughout a family and community program which include food, housing, and utility assistance. In 2010, Catholic Charities opened another office in Victorville. In this office, we also provide counseling for family reunification for children to be reunited with their families. The Family and Community Services Department, we provide food assistance by giving food vouchers for Stater Brothers and gift certificates for Food for Less. Due to our limited space that we don't have to have a food pantry to give bag food, we provide the vouchers and certificates. Our vouchers and certificates are restrictive. Clients cannot buy tobacco, alcohol, neither lottery tickets or magazines, and no change are given back. We determine which way is more efficient to help the needy and the families, and by conducting a full assessment one-to-one, and making questions like, is your gas on at home? Do you have cooking facilities? Or do you have a working refrigerator? Our assessment is more like a case management level. We do accept walk-ins at the moment. We do not accept walk-ins, We do appointments only. We're open to receive all the assistance from you, City Council, to deliver more services to our community. I don't know if you're aware, but between the other organizations that are present, we don't fulfill fully the need that is in the city of Victorville and surrounding areas. Last year, we served 737 households, 1,782 estimated individuals, and just from 389 individuals from city of Victorville. So we are very welcome to any assistance that you guys can provide us to continue with our service. Thank you.
Thank you. The next card is Rosine Reese.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and the council members. I'm Racine Reese. Well, by now I'm sure you probably know who I am. But I'm Racine Reese, and I'm kind of representing the not-so-big organizations that are out there. My program with Women of Noble, actually I'm with Women of Noble Character, that's the organization. And one of the programs, our Meal a Day Coalition, which started in 2011. We have about 8 or 9 different groups in our coalition, and a lot of them are people that used to serve down in the riverbed. And once they cleared it out, these were people that were looking for someplace else to serve. And the way our coalition works is we have the 4 weeks. If you want to come in and serve a meal 1 day a month, 2 days a month, 3 days a month, Women of Noble Character, we do it Sundays and Tuesdays. We have Pastor Kerry and his wife. They do it every Monday night. We have Storehouse of Blessings that does it every other Saturday, curbside. They do it 2 Saturdays and 2 Wednesdays. So anyway, it's just a coalition of a bunch of people that have come together since we've started serving at the warming shelter. We've served well over 1,500 dinners there. And we kind of met with Councilmember Negretti and kind of facilitated the idea of what we were doing. And we used to partner with the Salvation Army, and we no longer partner with them. So we are a coalition serving 800-900 meals wherever we can. And so I think it's a good idea that we bring these organizations together to see how, number one, we can make it safer, and number two, we can possibly be able to help more people in the community by doing it, by unifying it. So that's basically all I want to say. Thanks.
The name of your coalition? I'm sorry.
It's a Meal a Day Coalition, and it's Women of Noble Character. We're here. We've been serving meals since 2010 here in Victorville.
Thank you. Those were all the cards that I had for this item here. So are there any other discussions by council members?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So there are bi-monthly meetings at the Gate Church where food providers meet to discuss food collaboration and discussions to these particular issues. I have times and dates for the next collaborative food meeting and would love for those interested to participate in furthering the cause of a healthy Victorville to please contact me or reach out to me. My phone number is 760-912-3190, or you can send me an email at bagomez@victorvilleca.gov. There are other nonprofit organizations such as Curbside and HALO, an acronym for His Arms Loving Others, and they too have collaboratives, and they feed and nurture the warm bodies and those who ask. Again, reach out to me if you have any interest in the information, and thank you very much for bringing the conversation as it has been thus far.
Bi-monthly meeting is what organization?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
You said there was bi-monthly meeting at, I think, a church?
Yes, the statistician.
High Desert Food Collaborative.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mayor Gomez. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor Garcia. I really appreciate hearing about all the efforts that are going on, and I think what I'd like to propose is similar to what Councilmember Gomez just mentioned. Certainly, we are here to sort of bring these different efforts in alignment, because I think there are some synergies we can develop. But if we don't know about it, again, like my earlier comments, kind of hard to help. So I just hope everyone knows we are here to help, and I appreciate an invitation that I just heard of. If I could get some more information, I have my card afterwards, or you can call the city and set up an appointment anytime. But I think this is the very early stage of this. I appreciate it being on the agenda, but I'd like to research this some more offline, and hopefully bring back some potential opportunities to improve the collaboration that's already happening. But again, I certainly appreciate everyone's efforts, and if you don't contact us, it's kind of hard to help. So I think this is some good first steps. Appreciate the council's time.
Well, actually, if anyone needs any additional information or assistance, the number to call would be the city. Contact the city, and they will direct you to a council member, and that way we can actually either invite you to come in and sit down and talk to us, or we can talk to you by phone, or you can send us an email, but just contact the city. If this was just for discussion, there is no motion involved here, correct?
Correct.
So we will move on now to item D4. Repairs to the 1991 L8000 L-Tech high lift. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council approve the award of contract to Alltech Industries Incorporated in the amount of $30,396.52 for the repairs to the 1991 L8000 Alltech high lift.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council members of staff? If none, I do not have any cards. Discussion by council members? None?
Move approval of the item.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Now we move on to item D5. Agreement for design of skate park at Doris Davis Park. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council approve the consultant professional services provider agreement with Spawn Ranch Incorporated for the design of a skate park at Doris Davies Park for an amount not to exceed $42,000.
Thank you. Council members, questions of staff. This is questions of staff.
Yes, I have a question. During my question time, it's also going to be a comment, so I'll come back to the comment section, but I wanted the council to remind us what is the full cost that it's going to cost us, because I was under the impression that the $42,000 was actually the entire outcome, which is ridiculous for me to have thought that, right? Thinking of money and fathoming these things. But then we start to have a little bit of conversation, and there was still a little fog. So what were the complete outcome of the expenditure for a project, whatever size it is?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, to answer the question directly, what is it going to cost? The answer is we don't know. And we don't know at this point in time because we don't have a good design and we don't have a detailed engineer's cost estimate associated with that design. And this item is a precursor to getting to that point. By awarding this contract, it allows us to retain Spawn Ranch to actually conduct the design of the skateboard park. And then from that design, then we can get cost estimates to have an idea of what it should cost before we go out to bid. The final result won't be learned, of course, until you go out to competitive bidding process, allow contractors that specialize in this kind of work to bid, and then, of course, open the bid results. So we'll know that after some time. Mr. Gangler has the schedule that he can talk through. But this item was brought forward previously and approved in a format that's different than the format that we've decided to pursue. Council had originally authorized us to proceed based upon a design build, and staff did get concerned that that wasn't going to yield the best opportunity for us to control cost. So with that, staff decided to take a much more conservative approach and pursue the more traditional process, which involves the design, then bid, then build. So that's the process that we're going through.
So if I remember correctly, this morning we talked about the project being a little over $500,000, and it would come from DIF. If that's what I remember. That's why I was not sure because of the DIF portion and how that really actually played in.
The funding source is being funded from the portion of the development impact fee paid by developers upon issuance of building permits. And in the DIF, there is a component collected specifically for park and recreational amenities. So this is one of those types of amenities that are eligible to be spent on. So that would be the funding source. The funding source does have money in it that's accumulated from the development over the many years. As to the dollar amount, I don't recall specifically the estimate that they had used. It might have been over $500,000 in that order back in July. But again, that being said, we'd feel more confident identifying a price tag once we have a more detailed engineer's cost estimate.
Thank you. No further questions.
I do not have any cards for this item here.
If there's no further comments, Madam Mayor, I move the item for approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
This is the portion where I'm going to make the comment. The first part was the question. And
Go
then-
ahead, make your comments.
Okay, so now that I'm going to go to the part for the comments, I wanted a little overview for a better understanding to the public that what is it that we're doing with the skate park and how we change from going near a residential home to something more towards centralized where the park is, and for what reasons did we change that?
So yes, thank you for the question. One of the things that was identified within the last 40 days, certainly as I started getting more involved in trying to get updates as to the progress of this project, understanding council's direction, we actually reviewed very intently the location that was identified to build this skateboard park. And the location, as we saw on a map and then actually went out to visit, we actually walked the site. Staff became concerned that the location it was originally proposed in, which is at Pebble Beach Park, in between a parking lot and a residential unit, staff became concerned that it's too close to a residential unit and that the resident of that single-family home or duplex, whatever it might be, would be in our council chambers with noise complaints regularly and routinely, because if we move forward with this skateboard park at that location, we were fearful that the noise would have been something unenjoyable by the resident. So recognizing that, we actually looked at alternative locations still within the Pebble Beach Park, and we identified a location within the Pebble Beach Park grounds just easterly of the previously proposed site. So it'll still be built at Pebble Beach. I still call it Pebble Beach. I guess it's Doris Davies Park now. And its easiest access would be off of Hughes Road along that main drag into the park. We identified a location in the grassy area that we believe has sufficient buffer space between any other development around it, and is likely a location that's going to yield the least amount of complaints about noise that would be generated from that park.
Thank you. No further questions.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item D6. Presentation of request to approve the purchase of 5 command vehicles for the City Fire Department. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council award Bill Knight Ford Fleet Center the piggyback purchase of 5 2018 Ford Inceptor utility vehicles in the amount of $134,755 under the Houston-Galveston Area Council interlocal contract for cooperative purchasing number VE11-15 as budgeted in the fiscal year 2017-2018 approved City Fire Department budget.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council members, of staff? I'll start with Mr. Negretti. No? Jim?
Oh.
Yeah, Andre, I have a question for you. Would it be appropriate to bring in the proposal from county on items D6 or 7, or is that out of something being agendized? It has to do with a proposal that we received from the county.
That's not specifically agendized here. It's just a purchase of vehicles at this point.
Okay.
Item is just a purchase.
I understand. Thank you for the city attorney to respond to that question. I appreciate it.
I do have one card. Mark Harding.
Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Mark Harwig. I'm your fire chief and fire warden for the County of San Bernardino. I just wanted to walk you through, if I could, a quick history of the county fire district's relationship with the city. About 10 years ago, the city approached the county for partnership possibilities. Specifically, how could we regionalize our services, take advantage of all the resources available, and enjoy the cost savings, spread those costs, as well as the depth and breadth of services. We engaged in a 10-year agreement about 9.5 years ago. During that time, we've worked closely together, very closely. I would call us a strong partnership. We have controlled costs as much as we possibly could on both sides. I think the city of Victorville has benefited greatly from it. The county has benefited greatly, but maybe even most importantly, the people here in the Victorville and in the Victor Valley have benefited most because of that partnership. We were even to the point of adding resources. We split those costs. We added a squad at Station 311 downtown, and we've split those costs evenly between the city and the fire district. We've, when the city had a hard time purchasing new equipment, we actually applied for a grant. The county did on behalf of the city, and we have that new engine, really the only new piece of equipment over the last 10 years. And so. A year ago, we were notified by the city that you intended to sever the relationship. As we inquired, we saw that as a due diligence effort by the city, and so we have been working with you in order to try to, which is really what the partnership has been, really a collaboration. It's been what can we do to serve you better, and then bringing the county interests at the same time. We have been most recently, I would say, discouraged that the conversations seem to tend more towards transition than partnership. We believe that we're still optimistic that there is a partnership to be worked out. The most recent, and yet we haven't been able to meet face to face with you, the city council, and really as much as we want with the city staff. with either the CEO or myself. We have most recently, it's a bit of a shot in the dark because we're not really sure exactly what your interests are, but most recently, as in a response to a last, best, and final, we looked at more efficiently using the county station in Victorville 22 over at Spring Valley Lake in combination with Station 314. We brought in a proposal it was about $12.1 million, and we did that by essentially reducing the use of one of the stations and moving that crew, 2 people in that crew, over to the west side of town, specifically to better address those needs over there. And we had a meeting today with the city. We understand that there's an analysis done. We also understand that there was a study done by you for fire services. We have not seen either one of those, so it's really hard for me to comment on those. So I wanted to call and address you directly, Ms. Mayor and members of the City Council, in as much as I could, just because we haven't had the opportunity to talk directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was the only card that I have for this item here. So is there any other discussion by council members?
Yeah, I would like to respond to what he has asked. Those are my very same.
Well, we're still on the item for purchasing.
For D6, right?
We're still on this item to purchase.
Right, and I was going to respond to Mr. Hartwig's.
Purchase equipment?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and I'm not sure why you haven't had the opportunity to meet with us one-on-one or as a group. And I noticed that we're proceeding with these purchases, and it's, I think it's also a shot in the dark, or dark in the shot, whatever we want to call it. I don't know what's going on. I'm also confused. I thought there was a proposal. I got it 1:47, and then I noticed a meeting at 2, I think, and I don't have any feedback on what's happening. So I don't know if we do have a partnership or we don't have a partnership. I feel like we're just moving along, and it's like if your services were great, and I say if because this council unanimously has agreed that your services to us from the county has been superb, and there is no problem with that. And the cost happened to be an issue, but if the cost is no longer an issue, I really don't understand. And this is as much as I can give out, and this is me understanding what I'm seeing here, what I hear from you, and the history that has been built over the last year. So I'm not sure how I can even add to what you're saying, but I empathize with you because I feel I thought we had a partnership as well. That's all I'd like to add.
Madam Mayor, I have some comments. I don't want to confuse issues here, but at this point, we have been talking about this issue for more than a year. And the information I believe that came in today, and I didn't get a chance to review it, plus just I would say I think we can all agree we're in a different spot today on this issue than we were a year ago. A year ago, we were talking about one solution only, and being FP5, and I was under the impression that was really our only option at the time. And then, anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but I'd brought up a sales tax increase, and that was just ignored. And then months later, that's what we wound up doing, which was really weird. But anyway, would it make sense just to continue D6 and D7 to the next meeting, or just after or just really what I'd be after, and I can do this later. I have a recommendation on adding an agenda item for the next council meeting, but I'll do that at the appropriate time. But I just think I would like to consider some of the more lasting impacts on this issue. For example, pension liability, what that was like the last 10 years, what does that mean to us, and then going forward. And basically, I had always wanted a 10-year solution. So at some point, I would like to hear a presentation on what a 10-year deal looks like. But again, just like the other issues I brought up earlier, I don't know what to do here. So I'm just throwing that out for the council's consideration. I just want the numbers side by side,
something that we can actually make as decision makers a decision on. And I don't know if we're completely there. I haven't seen the numbers that I've asked for, and I would like to hear from the county, but I'll just throw that out there.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
No, we're on a
I
motion
still
to
have
make a
questions.
purchase.
In regard to, I have
That-
questions.
That motion's not really on the agenda tonight.
have
Right
no
now, it's just the purchase.
Continue these two items.
Right, so the motion to continue
I
the
have
items.
questions.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
In regard to the purchase of these vehicles, I have to assume that staff has made some kind of an evaluation for the need of vehicles. And one of the things that the meeting that I chaired was cautioning the council that if you delay, you back yourself into a corner and you have no room to negotiate. You need to move forward. If County Fire had said you don't need these vehicles, that's one thing, but they didn't. Our staff, and we have a consultant that says we need the vehicles. In regard to whether or not we have a partnership, I believe we're going to have I believe that we need the vehicles, number one, and I believe we're going to have a stronger partnership because if we proceed with the equipment that we need, and the county gave presentation 2 or 3 times that we need the equipment, that we will be able to provide services to the county for those areas that they would not be covering using the city contract. At least it would the council control the level of fire services in the city. But there would be a need for an ongoing contract to provide services to the county that would not be covered, that they're currently covering from the city using city equipment. And I would have questions if I had not seen and watched very carefully the presentation that Chief Hartwig made to the board. Essentially said county can't afford to buy equipment. Therefore, we can't wait. We need to buy the equipment. It just may be that somehow, some way, depending upon changes, that we could enter into a contract. I think anything's possible. And we'd already have the equipment to be used as a part of the contract. Further delay, county says the equipment needs to be replaced, and our staff says it needs to be replaced. I don't think it's a wise choice for the council. I think that if you bought the equipment and it was no good for any other reason, that's one reason not to buy it. If you bought the equipment because you didn't need it, that's a reason not to buy it. But even if you go back and listen to Mr. Hartwig's presentation to the County Board of Supervisors, if you go back and read the presentation that the fire chief of Victorville made to Victorville, we need the equipment. So I believe that based upon the recommendation of County Fire and the city, we ought to move forward and purchase this equipment immediately. How it's to be utilized is a matter to be negotiated later.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, if I might, this item precisely is dealing with the acquisition of 5 utility vehicles, and these utility vehicles have been identified as necessary as the types of vehicles being used in comparison are actually owned by the county currently. So, in fact, as a part of the direction of January 16th to pursue forming our own city fire department, also included in that action in that staff report was a very detailed plan. And among the items in that plan didn't just include staffing, it certainly included equipment. So these were identified among the vehicles needed if we're to start up that fire department. Saying it differently, one of the specific actions of January 16th was to go ahead and proceed with the hiring or the recruitment of a fire chief, which is a process that's well underway. And also the authorization was to start the recruitment process for the division chiefs and the BCs. An example, these vehicles are vehicles necessary to support those hires when they do come on board. Now, the reason why this item is before you today is there's likely a 5 to 6 month lead time to get these vehicles delivered. So the longer you delay, that certainly is longer for them to actually get delivered, because they do have to be outfitted specially. But rehashing a little bit of the past as to studies, and the county maintaining the position that they haven't reviewed the studies is surprising to me, because the studies certainly have been in all of your public agendas when we've discussed the matter, particularly the one that that was put together by Matt Freitas that you saw in January, and then I believe it was last June, the Citygate study. So I'm a little bit surprised at those comments that they haven't seen those studies, but they've been very well documented and really serve in both cases as validation for the decision going forward. I would discourage a continuance of this item because it impacts our ability to actually fulfill your direction to us in January, and that's to start up a fire department. Anything that creates a sense of wavering in the decision, I think, will have pretty meaningful consequences to our recruitment efforts and could negatively impact those recruitment efforts as we're trying to get the best and most qualified candidates for the job. Notwithstanding that, both myself and Mr. Harris did meet with County Fire Chief along with the CEO. They did submit some information that we have actually already shared with you. It's in memo format, so you can see the numbers. We can talk with you in better detail. In fact, we can agendize it if it's the desire of the council. But bottom line, we did not see anything in what they submitted is enough to move us from our recommendation to change directions. And then finally, speaking to Councilmember Negretti's comment about wanting to see a 10-year proposal, we'd like to see it too. We got a 1 year. We've been asking for it. I don't think you're going to get a 10-year because I don't think they can do a 10-year, to be straightforward with you.
Well, I, for one, am not confused. We've looked at this in considerable detail. Staff has done an extensive financial plan. You know, I have confidence in savings going forward. More than anything else, and it's on item D7 that I think we'll see it. We will have control over how we deliver service that's appropriate to the service need we're faced with, that I don't think we will ever have with the county, because they just don't operate that way. And I don't see any sign that they will ever operate that way. So I think the fact that we can control our operation and control our costs, to me, is just a compelling reason. So I'm prepared to move item D6 for approval.
Second.
I believe there's already a motion by Councilmember Negretti to continue items D6 and D7. I believe that got a second. So we have to vote on that one first.
So I'd like to just finish off, if I may, with my comments. The equipment was not needed in the last 10 years for purchase, and we're waiting to have fire staff to begin July 1st, which is about 5 months from now. We don't need to buy the equipment if we contract with the county. We're purchasing the equipment because we're moving forward to our city-run fire department. And my no vote for items D6 and items D7 will be the same. The necessary purchases are because the majority of the city council decided to go ahead with a city-run fire department, which definitely has cut the county and has boldly cut any partnerships with the county fire, which is very unfortunate. And my vote will reflect it as such, is not because I'm not representing the people and I don't want the people to have fire services, because clearly a one vote is not going to, they have the vote right now. So I just wanted everybody to know that I also understand staff's position and how things can get delayed, but I wanted you guys to understand what my reasoning was for voting no. Thank you.
Clarify the vote in the second that's before the council to be voted on, please.
The first one is to continue. Motion by Negretti, seconded by Ms. Gomez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Oppose?
Motion fails with Mr. Cox, Mr. Kennedy, and Mayor Garcia voting no.
Move approval of item D6.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Ms. Garcia and Mr. Negretti voting no.
Ms. Gomez.
Oh, Gomez, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Ms. Gomez and Garcia.
Would you repeat that final?
Yes. Motion carried with Mr. Negretti and Ms. Gomez voting no.
So the motion passed, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you, just for clarification. Now we move on to item D7. Presentation of request to approve the purchase of 2 paramedic squad vehicles for the City Fire Department. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council award maintainer Custom Bodies the piggyback purchase of 2 2018 Ford F-450 paramedic squad vehicles in the amount of $295,850 under the Houston-Galveston Area Council interlocal contract for cooperative purchasing number 11-2956 as budgeted for in the fiscal year 2017-2018 approved City Fire Department budget.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? I'll start with Mr. Negretti.
Any questions?
Questions? No. I do have one card. Mark Hardling, or what's his last?
Hardwick.
Oh, well, he had D6 and D7. All right, thank you. No cards. Is there any other discussion among council members? If none, I need a motion.
Before I make a motion, sometimes we make a motion second and have discussion. Sometimes we're having a discussion, then call for the motion. Technically, which one do we do first?
We have, we have a vote, then, or a motion, and then we have comments after that.
Okay, then comments. Okay, I move. Approve the staff recommendation. Now you can have comments.
Now we can have comments. Council member comments. None?
Call for the vote.
Vote.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Aye.
Motion carries with Mr. Gomez, Ms. Gomez and Mr. Negretti voting no.
Thank you. Now we move on to public comments. Madam Clerk, read the public statement here, please. Can you read the public statement, please, before I call the cards?
This is a time and place for the general public to address the City Council on any item listed on or not listed on the agenda per Government Code Section 54954.3. State law prohibits the Council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The Council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per individual or less, as deemed necessary by the Mayor, depending upon the number of individuals desiring to speak. All communications are to be addressed directly to the Council, not the members of the audience. This is a professional business meeting, and courtesy and decorum are expected. Please refrain from any debate between the audience and speaker, making loud noises, or engaging in any activity which might be disruptive to the decorum of the meeting. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of a city council meeting by willfully interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be required to assist with the removal should any persons or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9, Penal Code Section 403.
Thank you. The first card that I have is Roger LaPlante, and after him will be Brooke Brownell.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I am Roger LaPlante, a resident of Victorville, State Executive Board Representative for the 33rd Assembly District for the California Democratic Party. I understand that Ms. Gomez was reprimanded at the last City Council meeting by a majority vote of a 4-1 resolution. Ms. Gomez is still acting unprofessional in public. 2 weeks ago, I was attending our Central Committee-sponsored candidate training when Ms. Gomez, during her candidate introduction, verbally attacked me. I was shocked because this was for our training, and she got very personal. I think her conduct was very unprofessional, as she had announced that she was representing this wonderful city of Victorville. As a council member, Ms. Gomez, please conduct yourself with professionalism, dignity on this dais and in public in the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Brooke Brownell.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I have a property on Chula Vista. It's off of La Paz and Mojave. It's right next to Del Rey School. And there's a cell phone tower next to my property. 2 years ago, I went to the city planning, and they said if any permits needed to be pulled, the owner of the cell phone tower had to put a block wall up for visibility. And they wound up putting a generator in the front yard. And the planning department, they couldn't find the paperwork. A guy named Michael wound up finding it and planning. And I've been waiting for him to get a hold of me. He was saying he needs to give him a citation, a violation for not doing their due diligence on doing the cell phone tower. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I've been working with the planning department, or I think it's code enforcement or planning. I can't remember right now. Probably for the last 3 years on the same issue. If you have a chance, if you go down Chula Vista, the water company is right next door to the cell phone tower. This property that I have is a rental. I was there for about 30 days getting it ready, painting the inside, the outside, doing all kinds of work. And that street is, I think, 21 days work was being done either on the cell phone tower or from the water company. I think the water company should maybe do a little bit of maybe like tenant improvements. I had to do a rock because it's a rental. Had to get a business license. My property looks nice. It's a lower income neighborhood. A lot of the residents don't speak English. They didn't really understand when the cell phone tower wound up putting more satellites on the cell phone tower. Basically, it's devaluing their property. So they're making money, but the people on the street, they're losing value. One of the people, they just bought a house over there for like $160,000, which is pretty cheap right now. Real estate's high. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention if you have a chance to go down Chula Vista. A lot of parents drop off their kids on Del Rey. The water company's doing all kinds of work right there. It's been flooded. It's not flooded anymore, but for the last couple weeks it's been flooded. They should do a little bit of curb appeal, especially, people are there all the time. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. If you guys could go by, take a look at it, maybe have code enforcement or the planning department do something, at least try to get some kind of a violation. at least I could sue if they're violating something. I can't do anything right now. I'm just waiting for the city, so that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Miller Marks?
Hi, Miller.
Oh, hi. Hi, Mrs. Gomez. Hi, Madam Mayor and Council. God bless you guys. We keep you guys in prayer a lot. And Madam Mayor, I wanted to bring this to your attention again for our city. Our city is very, I think it's one of the nicest cities we have in our California, but it's growing fast. And what it is, I wanted to bring your attention on our speeders on those highways. They're driving so mad and reckless. They're breaking the speed limits. Now, I live on Mariposa and Tamarack, and it's just ridiculous. All hours of the night, they're racing. They're going. I know they're going about at least to 75 miles or 80 miles an hour. And we had a lot of accidents along on Mariposa where I live at, and we just want some safety on our highways. And there are breaking a lot of laws. These speeders who's coming from Los Angeles. I don't know, there are a lot of people are moving from Los Angeles up here, and I just don't. I'm just trying to be precautious. We don't need no more accidents. So please give this to your attention and to our wonderful council. Please help us out on this to please slow down the traffic, put different signs out there, protection of where we live at, and a caution light. Anything what you guys could come with, at least we'll try to slow them down because they are driving reckless. They are very much. So I just want to bring this to your attention. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thurston Smitty? I can't even pronounce your name. I only know you as Smitty.
Good evening, Mayor and council members, city staff, and the residents of Victorville. I'm Thurston Smitty Smith. I wear a lot of hats in the Victor Valley over the years, but I'm here on behalf of the Victor Valley Bicycle Tour. I have some dates, save the date cards to give to your staff. And the date is going to be October 27th of this year, 2018. We'll have it starting in the town of Apple Valley at their Civic Plaza Park again. But what we try to do is bring bicycle safety and awareness to the community and to our children's. Over the years, Hesperia, town of Apple Valley, and the city of Victorville have been sponsors besides other businesses. We've been able to purchase over 1,500 bicycle helmets for our youth. We've done some what they call bicycle rodeos at the schools, where the kids kind of go through a mock intersection, and then they get a certificate. We make sure they got a bicycle helmet and sometimes some bicycles. Last year, we were able to purchase over 500 signs that, if you've noticed in the Victor Valley, it says, give them 3 feet, which was the new law in 2016, I think it was. And we hope to continue to be able to do that with some more helmets this year, signage, or just bringing awareness to bicycle safety, because the bicyclists have a right to the road too. So besides the save the date cards, I have a letter for you council members and the city's manager asking for your continued support for the Victor Valley Bicycle Tour. Thank you very much. I do have a comment for the skate park too. I'll get with Keith. My brother, we built a skate park in the Stevensville, Montana, and Pearl Jam, which is a band. I don't do much of that rock and roll stuff anymore. But for every ticket that they sell, they take $1 of that ticket, and it's 4 skate parks throughout the whole United States. So I'll get with your city manager, give them the contact. We can always work something better for our youth, give them something to do. In Montana, it was about $225,000. A little different laws in California. It probably costs you, like you said, $500,000 or more. But I look forward to helping you out with that. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, those are all the cards that I have. I don't see anyone else. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak? No? We move on to our city manager's report.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, just a couple of items that I wanted to bring to your attention. There's a neighborhood cleanup and free dump day scheduled for Saturday, February 24th at the Murph, which is on Abbey Lane. This is free to all Victorville residents, and residents can dispose an unlimited amount of extra trash, garden trimmings, wood waste, appliance, scrap metal, and so on. Information can be found on our website at victorvilleca.gov. Also, there's a run in the park scheduled for Saturday, March 17th. Check-in is at 7:30. The run starts at 8, and this time it'll be in Brentwood Park. The price is $5 per adult. Kids are for free.
How long is the run? Just run around the park, or do you have a track, or 1 mile, 5 mile,
there is
10
a
mile?
track that they set up. I believe there's a 1 mile and a 3 mile.
Okay.
But I can get you,
generally
I can
don't
get you
run unless
more
it's 5
accurate
miles.
information
Are you
on that.
going to run?
That's all I have, sorry.
Very good. This is for discussion and possible action regarding items for the upcoming city council agenda. This is for the agenda, not council members' reports yet. Any items for future agenda?
Madam Mayor, if I could go first, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Like I said earlier, I was a little confused when we talk about the fire, being with the county fire versus having our own city fire department. Hiring 65 new public safety personnel and going back to a city fire department when 10 years ago, I suppose we couldn't afford it. I was not aware of why the decision was made, but I have an idea what it had to do with cost. And Rudy Cabrialis and other folks, Terry Caldwell, and they voted to go to county fire. And so the information that we've got about comparing whether staying with them or continuing staying with the county or going out on and doing our own city fire department has been over the last year moving slowly, and then more recently more information's coming out. And again, I mentioned today there was another offer I didn't really have time to delve into. So just because of the importance of this issue, whether we have our own fire department or stay with the county, I would really like to put this on the next agenda and actually have a presentation from county so that we can ask them questions, because I have serious concerns about what it is that we're doing, because this is, we can't keep switching back and forth. I mean, at some point, it has to be a little bit easier to understand. And like I said, I wasn't here 10 years ago. So anyway, I just want to look at the latest cost estimates as we know it, including one issue on a 10-year contract. We just had a 10-year contract. And from what I understand, the cost was pretty flat for a while, and then there was other issues, just like we voted on today, the equipment increases, breathing apparatus. I get that. I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is some alternatives. For example, a low, medium, high. The gold-plated solution, yeah, it's going to cost us more. The medium, and then the low, something to that effect, where when you line them up, it's a little easier to look at. I have a lot of questions and issues with funding that we can get down the road to address equipment acquisitions and all that. So I'm not asking anybody on the city side or on the county side to have a crystal ball. I just want to know, we had a great working relationship for the last 10 years that did not include pension liability. I mean, what's wrong with another 10 years of the status quo? and then looking at future mechanisms to increase funding. But I don't think we've had a comprehensive discussion, and if I would request respectfully from the council that we put this on the agenda for one more time at the next meeting, and just have a little bit more of a final look at what we're talking about, because again, there was just more information that came in today, and I just didn't have time to look at it. But what I did see was that I believe it was less than the last one, and literally, as a council member, right-sizing our fire services going forward is not just a simple question of city or county. It's future funding, revenue increases, CFDs, sales tax, maybe even FP5. I don't know. Maybe all of them. But the fact that people move here and continue to move here, and we have no way to address the increase in public safety services and the demand that we have is maddening when we keep focusing on things that are in the weeds instead of the big picture issue items, which we talked about a partnership. You know, we need to look at funding solutions that work for both sides going forward in the future. Even if we had our own city fire department, it would
You
be the
have
same
30
thing.
seconds, Councilmember Negretti.
So I request that we put fire services on the next agenda. That would be my motion.
I have no objection to a full discussion of fire service. We keep talking. I don't want to stop what we're doing. I don't want to move off of our path. I don't have any problem comparing the county's latest offer with ours. I think it requires an understanding of labor, whether we pay it ourselves or we pay it with the county. Pension liabilities, whether we pay it ourselves or pay it with the county. The nature of service, whether we're going to roll a fire engine and a complete fire company every time we get a medical call, or whether we have the option to run squads. Those are the kind of things that we need to talk about. We need to do a comparison. I don't want to slow down on our effort, but I think I have no problem having a full discussion so everybody knows that we have fully considered the county's proposal. Why they waited this long to get us a proposal, I don't know, but we can do it. I don't have any problem with that, Eric.
Do we need a motion in order to agendize?
We have a motion. I haven't heard a second yet.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
No,
Aye.
I want discussion first.
I don't think we ought to try and do it in a council meeting. I think we probably need to do a workshop that does a compare and contrast so we can see the two approaches and where we're going.
Oh, is it my turn? I don't have any objections to discuss this. I recall very well where the county stood here and said they're going to make the last and best offer, and they had it all worked out. We waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. What's it been, a month? 5 weeks? And now, oh boy, here's the latest after we saw your figures. I asked today, what did it show? And they said, simply met our figures. But yeah, you can wait around until we get ours worked out and then meet them and then claim you want to talk about it. This discussion should have taken place. This discussion has been taking place, should have taken place, and the council should have kept, county should have kept their word and submitted their last and best at least a month ago and didn't. Sorry, I think the time has passed for further discussion. We asked for that, we didn't get it. We waited. And I think that what I see, my opinion, is let's delay this as far as we can so we can get it into the November election and get another councilman and hopefully head this off. My concern is the city of Victorville. I don't care about the election. I don't care about who wins or loses. I'm looking for the service. And one of the things, when you have the county making a presentation that we need paramedic vehicles and then we vote no, I need more information from the staff. That just defied absolute total logic. We're going to be using city vehicles in the county area because we're going to have a regional fire department. I want the city paid when we provide service to the county, which is what we're doing, and your own firefighters are verifying they use the equipment from the city and the county all the time, which is one of the reasons it's wearing out. There may be a lot to talk about, but it seems to me that it went from talking about service and local control to purely political. And I will never agree to give up local control. There are ways to become more efficient, more effective, And there are ways when the citizens of Victorville are paying for a service that they get reimbursed when the vehicle and manpower is used in the county. So if this is another delaying tactic, I'm absolutely, totally opposed to it, because I just bet you anything, within another 2 or 3 weeks, there'll be another delaying tactic. Let's get this to November. I think that's just an egregious presentation and a front that's offensive to me.
Question, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to make sure that we have a discussion now and not after we vote. Let's have it now.
Agenda item.
Well, what I would like to add is, this is a big show. I can see it. It is very politicized. We had a motion on the floor, which I second. There was no third, which is very interesting. So we go back, see who comes in, who bites the bullet. Now we have a second. Now can we get a third? This is a huge show. I can agree that we're not delaying anything. I don't see anything going to be delayed. Everything has pushed forward. Now it looks like there's 3 people at least that want to listen and to continue to listen. I don't know if this is just giving false hope. We've heard that there's people that are not willing and are not bending. We have 3 precise votes that are for city run. 2 that we can say are, no, let's do annexation or let's look at the county. So I'm just surprised to see how many people popcorn up here and then decide to sway and say yes and no. That's very frustrating. This is not a very good model technique for me to learn from, because I'm learning really good from the best up here. And it's very shameful because I don't want to put up a show. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to discuss city business, and you can begin to see by the different motions and everything we do with our body. We're really telling you what we're doing. I think this is not the right thing to do, but who's to say who's not going to bring it up next? So if you want to call a question, I guess we're ready.
So I have a motion by Mr. Negretti, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Can I poll the council? Mr. Cox?
No.
Mayor Garcia?
No.
Ms. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Negretti? Motion fails with Mr. Cox, Mayor Garcia, and Mr. Kennedy voting no.
Are there any other items that need to be agendized for the next meeting or future meetings?
So I have a couple that I'd like to share if no one else or you.
Well, I do have something.
What item are we on, Madam Mayor?
We're still agendizing for. I do have a question, City Manager. At our last meeting, we were supposed to do a report, public report regarding Councilmember Gomez not representing the city. Is that supposed to be agendized, or is that something that will be done? Representing the city or the council members?
My recollection of the action of the council was that it just voted on a public statement. I don't recall a specific report.
So that was the final statement?
That's what I recall as the action of the council, yes.
Had a discussion, a motion, it's over.
That was over? Okay, that's fine.
Madam Mayor, if I might, there was a question posed by Councilmember Cox asking about the run in the park. I have an answer. My assistant Michelle has texted me, and it's a 5K run and a 3K run or walk. So you could do one or the other. You could run or walk.
Reports from council members.
On the adding to the agenda.
Did you have an item?
Yes, I did.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you for not skipping me. So what I would like to look at is we're
Go
looking
ahead.
at the Green Tree Golf Course, and there's this concept of a CFD or some kind of district, and so we keep going back and forth again with the golf course yes or golf course no. So I thought I would bring up the idea of a CFD, and so that's all I want to share for that item.
Is that a motion to put that on a future agenda?
Yes, this is the items to add on the agenda.
Then I would recommend both Councilmember Cox and Kennedy recuse themselves from voting on this item.
About the side? To go outside, or?
Yes, I think you should leave if we're going to have a motion, or if there's a second. Well, let's see if there's a second first. Let's see if there's a second first.
No second.
No second, that motion fails.
We love the pony show, getting really exciting. The second one is the TOT tax discussion. With the upcoming hotels in the city, I'd like to discuss the transient occupancy tax. Some residents have mentioned that Barstow has it at a 12.5. Not too long ago, a couple of months ago, I heard that we have it at 7.5. So I thought I would bring that up to discussion, see what we can do, if there's anything, maybe reports, something that we can start discussion. I know we have 2 hotels that are quickly coming in the city of Victorville. I don't know how many we have total, but these are some of the things that residents have vocalized that probably we should look into. So I figured, hey, why not just bring it up? And if it happens, it happens. If not, hopefully we'll have another council member and he'll get the votes, and then we don't have to deal with the pony show that I give all the time.
So is that a motion to add a discussion at a future agenda?
Yes, this is add to the agendas.
Motion by Ms. Gomez, seconded by? No second, the motion fails.
Are we now on item 4?
Well, I don't know if she's
No,
done.
motion failed.
No,
She said
but
2
she-
items, she already.
Yeah, but she.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, you're right. You have the experience. It failed. What's next? The presiding chair takes over.
We're on item E4, and this is reports from council members. We have 5-minute time limit, so I'll start with Ms. Gomez.
So I want to say thank you for the Unforgettables for doing such an amazing job in our community. If you are unfamiliar with the Unforgettables, they provide burial services to our fallen children angels. I attended the event, and it was assumed that I was representing the city. Without warning, they called me up to the stage to say a couple of words, in which I did just that. So I attended. And there was, you can see, representative from 33rd District, Jay Obernolte, 1st District Supervisor Robert Lovingood, and representatives for the 21st Senatorial District, Scott Wilkes Rep, and our 8th Congressional Representative for Paul Cook's office, all recognizing those that have significantly contributed to our organization or to their organization. Unfortunately, I was not able to recognize these individuals on behalf of the city of Victorville. However, it was even more unfortunate not to have a member of the city council that could act in this official capacity on behalf of the city for its attendance. Nothing else.
Just since it's the right time of year, I'm going to make this comment. Matthew Cabe has discussed this at great length in the Daily Press, but I'm going to say now, and I hope the word gets out. Internal Revenue Service never calls anybody about collecting income taxes. They don't do anything by email. The only way they will communicate with anybody is with fax. They don't trust the security of email. Anybody who gets a call from Internal Revenue Service, hang up. It's a fraud. It's a fake. I've been doing this almost 50 years, and I can tell you, They don't call. It's a lie. It's a fake. Don't ever listen to them. Hang up the phone. Don't send them money. I don't care what you do. Hang up the phone before you send them money.
Have a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
In regard to the reports, I hope that staff will analyze the report that they received from County Fire today. I have not seen it. I understand it came into my in-basket just before the meeting. I don't think this should stop the discussion. I was trying to think in regard to negotiations for the dozens of contracts we have. I can't think of a single instance where the city council negotiates the contract unless they negotiate or discuss it with the legislative body they're contracting with. I find it difficult to council to be meeting with individuals who are negotiating, which I think is improper, although a councilman can meet with anybody they want to, including those people who sue us. Just an odd, different way to approach things. If you look at the Sheriff's Department, we're going to contract staff. We'll negotiate. They will present that. If we have questions, we have county administrative officer or the supervisor. They're elected. We're elected. Staff to staff. I'm not sure what this departure is that's requested by County Fire, and I hope the City Council will go to our staff for questions. Of course, they can go to anybody they want to, but if they feel the need to go directly with those individuals that we negotiate, then I hope they will go directly to the supervisor. That's the individual that's the chairman of the board and signs the contract, not anybody else. Just a comment. Thank you.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Cracker Barrel, our famous new restaurant that just opened. They were so generous. They actually donated 3 checkboard tables and 6 rocking chairs. And I just want to thank them. I think they were very kind to do that. And they allowed for me to select the organizations that they were delivered to. And it was in the paper today, so most of you probably already saw it. But anyhow, I just want to thank them, and I know they're doing great things for our community already, and they will continue to do so, so we need to support them also. Thank you very much. And I don't think there's anything else before this council, so I adjourn the meeting.